As a driven dentist, you see the world differently. Where some see scarcity, you see abundance. When others want to give up, you keep going. You're building an amazing life of significance. That means you can't rely on ordinary advice from ordinary advisors to get to your goals. You want advice that's going to help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love, the causes you care about, and make your dent in the universe. But the fact is, this advice remains hidden because relatively few professionals are well versed in them, and the extremely affluent don't care to let you know about them. Join us as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families. Welcome to Dental Wealth Nation. Here's your host, Tim McNeely.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Dental Wealth Nation. So excited to have you here today. And wow, do we have something important for you. You work hard in your business every single day to build wealth so you can take better care of the people you love, support the causes you care about, and really have an impact. That's what this show is all about, is how can you build that amazing life of significance. But with wealth, there comes some dangers too. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how you can create lasting wealth without some of the negative side effects for your family that are out there. And by the time we finish today, you're going to know the different ways that you can implement strategies to build not just wealth now, but lasting wealth. You're going to have a framework to learn if your family's wealth is at risk, but more importantly, you're going to feel courageous about taking action so you can help protect the wealth that you've created for your family, not just now, but for generations to come. And our guest today is an expert in this. We have Cindy Arledge. She's author of 4 best-selling Amazon books on wealth transfer, right? You can go get her books. Absolutely fantastic. She's also at the forefront of a new industry that she's termed legacy planning. She's the CEO of the North Texas Family Enterprise Center, and she really offers these tools to her members. And she's here today to share with you some of the things that you can do. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Tim, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited about being here with you because I really admire what you're doing and helping families, pulling back that curtain and let them have access to the tools that help them build a life of wealth and significance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you and I were just talking about before the show, there's so many things that we don't know. And we want to share these things. And for you, this is a personal journey that you've been on. So do you mind sharing a little bit about some of the challenges that you've gone through and how that's led you to where you are today?
Well, Tim, and what I went through is really my why. My mom and dad were married in 1949. They were Depression-era babies. Dad was 18, mom was 17 when they got married. They had 4 children in 9 years. And I found all their tax returns after they passed away. And in their 10th year of marriage, my dad was making less than $4,000 a year. Isn't that amazing with 4 kids? And they both passed away in 2005. They died 8 months apart. And by the time that they passed away, Dad was making $750,000 a year. And he managed to amass a $10 million estate, which is, really amazing. And it was all in real estate. And he had a goal that he wanted to leave an empire for his kids so that they didn't have to go through what him and mom went through, right? And sadly, in less than 15 years, most of my parents' wealth was gone. And really it destroyed or injured family relationships. Some were destroyed. And all the hard work and everything that they did was, really gone. And what I discovered is that it happens 70% of the time.
70% of the time. Wait, let's just pause a moment. 70% of the time, the wealth doesn't last, does it?
Not through the first transfer. And this isn't just like me making this up. Roy Williams, who I consider the godfather of this industry, that my goal is to see it be recognized as an industry, did a 3-decade-plus study on 3,000 families. And I mean, that's a long time in a lot of families. So he had the hard data to really dig into what is a wealth transfer failure, what causes it, and from there you can reverse engineer the solution.
Wow. So let's spend a moment, right? 70%, that's huge. If you're listening to this, right, 7 out of 10 of the people are going to have some kind of a wealth transfer failure. And Cindy, how do you define wealth transfer failure? What is that?
Well, Roy defined wealth transfer failure as a loss of control of assets. And it's a great way to measure. You can, like you have how many assets you have, and then if they're less, that's pretty easy to measure. But from my standpoint, from the angst that we went through, it's really not enough. The other piece of it is unnecessary stress. Death is always going to be a time of grieving and pain and sorrow, but oftentimes it's harder than it has to be because we're not prepared. So for me, a wealth transfer failure includes the unnecessary stress that we put our family through, and then the broken relationships. And those can be a little bit more difficult to measure, but how many people do you know that no longer speak to relatives because a family member passed away?
Yeah, huge. I was just listening to the story the other day, very wealthy family, about $100 million estate, and the grandsons were managing the money, and now all of a sudden there's legal disputes. It's a mess, absolute mess, and broken relationships. And so, that's one of the reasons wealth can disappear. But what are some of the other reasons you've seen that really kind of cause these wealth transfer dysfunctions and wealth transfer failures? What's behind it?
Well, basically, it goes into 3 different buckets, right? The first bucket, and the easiest one to fix, is the family doesn't have a formal mission statement. And most families think, well, I don't need a mission statement for my family. But when you create a mission statement for your family, you're really building unity. And when I work with families I'm looking 100 years into the future. And so the mission statement is the guiding statement that holds the family together. And if you think about it, like oftentimes we don't say things that we don't need to say because we don't think we need to say them, right? Like you shouldn't have to tell your kids don't sue each other, right? But you really need to tell your kids don't sue each other. Because kids end up suing each other. And, oftentimes people think, well, it's the wealth that causes the problems. But I've seen a family torn apart for $25,000. Yep. So the first is a mission statement. And then the second one is really to prepare your heirs. And this one is a huge topic, but it's really not as hard as you think it is once you know how. I tell people brain surgery isn't hard if you know how. But preparing your heirs, like how many people have their children set up as the trustee?
Most people.
What kind of training are you providing for your child to become a trustee?
It's on the job training, but none takes place.
And even before that, I tell people, I've seen people live through a bad estate plan. Oftentimes we have our children, our grandchildren as our medical power of attorney or our financial power of attorney. I have a friend of mine who passed away last year. He was 101. He was an amazing man. He outlived 2 wives. And when his first wife passed away of 65 plus years, their granddaughter, who was an attorney, was his guardian. And she basically called the state and said he wasn't able to take care of himself. He was 91 years young. It took him a week to convince the hospital he was fine. And by the time he got home, they had stripped the house of all of his wife's jewelry and important papers.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah.
And he remarried, lived another 8 years and had a great life, but you can live through a bad estate plan.
So really one of the reasons wealth will disappear is just no family mission statement. The second thing that can help is really kind of training your heirs and getting them ready. Well, what's another thing that we can take into consideration here?
Well, we've got the mission statement. We want to get them prepared, and the final piece of it, and this is they're all kind of critical, but the one that causes the most problems is lack of communication and trust. We've known our siblings all our lives, but oftentimes when there's a death in the family, we go back to being those young children. Because I don't care how old you are, when you become an orphan, you become an orphan. And I see the siblings revert back to those childhood roles. Like oftentimes there's the smart one, there's the troublemaker, there's the one that dad always loved, there's the one that mom always babied, right? And so that communication and trust, you have to build that with the adults that people have become. Yeah, it's a big piece of it.
Wow. I mean, right. There's so much dynamically that goes on in families. I mean, we're not just talking about, hey, do you have your will and your trust? I mean, this is understanding the family dynamics. It's communicating well. It's preparing the heirs. There's a lot that goes into this, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And, I've seen people like they want to get overwhelmed, but they really don't need to, because I give them a roadmap, and it's super easy when you're doing this, when you're not in chaos. Now, if you're waiting in the middle of chaos, things get hard.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you do it beforehand and people are prepared and they know how to communicate, trust each other, it just makes all the difference in the world.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned you've seen families destroyed over $25,000 and certainly $25,250,000. It's across the spectrum. But is there a certain stage at someone's life or some level of wealth where they should really start looking into this legacy planning? When does this start to make sense?
Well, it really depends on, of course, lots of times people have to have something that they want to protect. Like if you feel like you're broke, you really, that's not going to work. I really hesitate to put a number on it. Typically, I'll have clients that have at least $1 million of investable assets, because by then, they feel comfortable that they're going to be able to leave something. And truly, though, any family can benefit. The family with the $25,000, it was grandma. That was all she had left. She was 83. If she'd lived another year, the kids would have had to been paying for her care, right? She left her money to her youngest grandson. He was the only one left in college. And the son accused the sister of stealing the money.
Wow.
And with the situation like that, just a simple letter. Hey, son, I love you as much as I love your sister. I'm leaving this to the youngest grandson to try to help him get through school. Then that would have done such a huge to go a long way. It goes back to that communication and trust.
Yeah. But it sounds like really kind of the deciding criteria of if this makes sense is, do you have something you want to leave to the next generation? Do you have something you want to pass on?
It's, my dad always said he wanted to build an empire. I call it an enterprise. Do you want to build an enterprise that you're giving your family an advantage in the future?
Okay, excellent. So now I know a lot of our listeners, right? They may have done their will, they may have done their trust, and a lot of times we've done the research. We know most trusts are old and outdated. This is certainly a key element, but this is not necessarily what you're talking about with legacy planning, right? Because I know many people think I've got my estate planning attorney. I've done this stuff.
You're exactly right, and a lot of people think that won't happen to my family. Right? We've got a natural bias that we have to overcome in our brain that's like, that's not going to happen to our family. I've got my will. I'm good. And it's about not knowing what we don't know. I mean, that really is the key. There was a survey done by the family office industry that they asked families before a wealth transfer had occurred, what do you think causes wealth transfer failures? And they said, you'll love this, 93% of the responses said, it's my advisors. I got bad advice and maybe taxes, and then the 7% family issues.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned family offices, and you and I are both well versed in what those are. Most of our listeners are, but for those of you who don't know, a family office is really the structure that the super rich, those with a net worth north of $500 million, typically use to manage their financial affairs. And it's a team of advisors. So people you may work with, they have on staff working for the family full time. It's really access to the best of the best experts out there is what a family office is. And so you said in this study, they really found most of these plans failed.
So if you compare the two studies, the study done by the family office before the wealth transfer occurred, those that haven't been through it said, oh, it's 97% my advisors and taxes and 93% advisors and taxes, 7% my family. The 30-year study done by Roy Williams, over 3,000 families, it was the total opposite. It was 3% taxes and bad advice, and 97% was wealth transfers failures are caused by the family.
Wow. So, right, you may have all your estate buttoned up. You may have all that stuff. You may, even told your kids, hey, here's how I'm going to leave stuff. But it sounds like there's still some issues at play. And so, how would you define legacy planning, and how does the legacy planning process work?
Well, I'm glad you asked. For me, legacy planning is a heart-centered, holistic approach that we sit next to the wealth advisor. We sit next to the attorney and the CPA, hopefully a tax advisor, right? We are the heart-centered that really prepare the family. I'm kind of like a human capital specialist at the family level.
Wow. Okay. And so, you mentioned kind of setting aside the team of advisors. Who are the professionals that are usually involved in this process?
Well, one of the, I take my families through 3 steps, and I have them in one of my steps, I have them identify what I call a board of directors, because when you treat your family like a business, then you can create an enterprise, right? You want to create systems and structure that can go from one generation to the next. And then if you think about a business never runs out of money, right? And so when you create an enterprise family, you don't have to worry about the family running out of money, because you create a system that it regenerates. And so one of the things that we talk about is creating this board of directors or this brain trust. And truly it's like a fractional family office. So I encourage entrepreneurs to decide who do they need on their team that if they weren't there could help the next generation. And so for us, we have our banker on our board of directors, because one of the interesting things about selling my mom and dad's estate, Dad thought he had everything set. He had all the family limited partnerships. He had all the trusts. He didn't fund them. He didn't follow the directions because he had control issues. He didn't have access to quality planners, so it wasn't set up quite right. And so I ended up borrowing $3 million to settle my parents' estate in 2008. How about that and it's real estate.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my rents went down 75%. And so our banker is on our board of directors. Because having a really good banking relationship is important when you owe $3 million. And we also have, of course, our attorney. We have a financial advisor. We have our CPA. And for our family, I'm serving as the legacy planner, even though I don't advise it. But we do bring in outside experts in particular areas of expertise that we need. And we actually will do a conference, not COVID, this year we didn't, but we'll have a conference like once a year, once every other year. And we bring in the experts and they meet with the entire family. And they truly do serve as our brain trust. And then I have 2 mentors. I have 2 family mentors that my girls can go to when I'm gone. People usually say if, but I know there's going to come a day. Because the one guarantee that we have is that we're going to die. Mm-hmm. And so I'm establishing that mentor relationship for the girls with people that have known me and my business has been really peace of mind and confidence.
I mean, this is really forward-thinking stuff. I mean, this is powerful because you really are creating that family enterprise. And it's something I hear from my clients all the time is I want to take care of the next generation, but they're not quite sure how to do that.
Yeah, and I simplify that. Our legacy plan is 8 years in the making, and we believe a family that has fun, plays together, stays together.
Yeah.
And as you know, you can have trust that can serve different purposes. And so we go on an annual trip every year. We've declared the 2nd Saturday to the 3rd Saturday in June as our legacy week. And we actually meet and we have meetings, but we've had our meetings in St. John, and we've had our meetings in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Tetons. And what I found, if any matriarchs are out there wanting more grandkids, if you invite your kids to an exotic beach vacation, you can get more grandkids.
I love it. Oh, that's fantastic. And actually, I just got chills as you were talking about that because it's so powerful. Because by doing this, you can really start to involve the entire family in this process and create those values, create the system, create that legacy, create that family mission statement so that you do have sustainability, so that you're not in the 70% of generational wealth that disappears.
Well, and what we do is we give them on the job training. So they get the budget, they get to decide where we go, they get to learn how to do communication and trust, planning a fun event every year. And those kind of things, experience is the key, right? Why wait till you're dead to start training your kids?
Yeah.
Do it while you're alive.
So, right, for someone who's listening to this, right, how do we know if we're at risk? How do we know what's going on in our family dynamics? How do we know if this is something we should even consider? And how do we get started? But all right, how do you even know if you're at risk?
Well, and what I've done to simplify this, I created a risk audit that takes less than 5 minutes to complete, because I've discovered through helping my clients and learning where there's unnecessary stress, lack of communication and trust, right? And then the lack of mission statement, where those affect. There's 9 conditions that if you are no on any of the questions, I can pretty much predict that your family's going to have problems in the future.
Wow. So on that risk audit, what are some of the things that you're asking? What's one or two of those questions, and why are those so important to answer?
Well, one of the questions that's so important to answer is, are your important documents organized, and have you communicated your desires with your family?
Okay.
I've seen families destroyed making life and death decisions for dad. Because dad didn't tell him what he wanted. And one child's like, unplug him. He wouldn't want to suffer. And the other's like, no, we got to keep him. So trying to make life and death decisions for someone else is very stressful. But when you know exactly what the other person wanted, it's easy for the family to come together and then deal with the task at hand. They've got someone who's deathly ill that they're trying to get well, right? And so not having to fight over or guess what would have dad wanted, and just be able to come together as a united front is amazing. And then the documents being organized. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how much time families lose trying to find the will. I know of one family that found a key to a safety deposit box, but didn't know what bank it went to.
Wow. So actually, let's just spend a little time there. Do you have like a little hack or some kind of little suggestion that for people to store documents? Do you recommend scanning things and storing them digitally and giving everyone access? Well, what's kind of like a best practice around that, just for people who are listening that say, oh my gosh, if Cindy can help get me organized, I would be forever grateful. Well, what's like that little hack or suggestion that you make?
Well, everybody has different ways they want to do things, right? Some people are paper, some people are digital. And I believe in a backup system. So however you do it, I suggest you have have a backup to how you do it. And one of the hardest, this is, I would say, a hack, is find a way to keep your information updated, because it's easy to do it once. And then you've got, like, I got my documents, organized. And then 5 years later, you've moved twice. You no longer have that life insurance policy. You don't own those cars anymore. So the hack is design a system that's super easy, that's easy to maintain and keep up to date.
Okay. And when you say documents, right, I'm guessing will, trust, healthcare power of attorneys, deeds, mortgages, insurance, things like that? Or are there other documents too that you would suggest storing?
Well, I've got a super easy checklist that I share with my clients. It's actually got 12 categories. And one of the categories is pet care. Because think about it, if you go in the hospital and the neighbors are having to take care of your pets, because let's face it, our pets are our four-legged animal friends, right? Being able to have, I keep mine in a filing cabinet, right? And I've got 12 sections. And one of the sections is pet care. So in that pet care for each animal, here's the animal's name, when they were born, here's the vet's name, here's the power of attorney to take my animal to the vet, here's what they eat, here's when they eat. That's just one of the easy things to do. And then I've also got another section on my house. Please roll my trash out on Thursday nights. Here's the code. Here's the telephone number to the various suppliers of electricity and water. Make it easy for people to help you if you need help.
Okay. Excellent. So, right, I know, as people are listening to this, they may be thinking this is so complicated, so nuanced, right? We can make it more complex than it has to be. But, how can someone just start in this process? What can they do, right? We talked about how to figure out if you got risk, which is with your risk audit. And if that comes back and we're saying, oh my gosh, I'm at risk, what are the next steps that we should take?
Well, I think the risk audit is a great place to start, because there are some things that are more important than others. If your will is out of date, that's the place to start. I mean, so many people don't even have a will. My poor family, they've gotten past the embarrassment that if you come within 3 feet of me, I'm going to ask, do you have a family? Are you over 18? And do you have a will? And unfortunately, less than, 70%, like if you're 30 or 18 to 30, you've got a 78% chance that you don't have a will, right? And even 17% of seniors over the age of 72 don't have a will. So if you don't have a will, you don't even have your family protected in the legal arena that we're living in. You've given control of your estate, your business, and your family to whatever state you live in. So that's the first place. I always call it like circle the wagons. Remember in the old Westerns, how they circle the wagons? Get the most important things done first. Get your will, get your, financial plan in place, and your legal plan. And then I think, Tim, we talked about getting a board of directors to help you. Get a good group of financial, legal, legacy, tax advisors to create the plans that will move your family forward and for the next 100 years.
Yeah. So, you know what, maybe we can just pause there for a moment and talk about advisors, because, I spend a lot of my time trying to vet and find really, really best of the best advisors out there. And I have come across so many attorneys and CPAs and other advisors that if I said, tell me about your legacy planning process, they're going to look at me sideways and say, my legacy what? Let me tell you about the market and how it's doing. I mean, that's going to be, we'll talk. They have no clue when it comes to this. So what are the questions? How can we find the professionals who are well-versed in this, who do understand legacy planning, who understand the dynamics and what goes into it?
Well, that's an excellent question. And to your point, what I have found is oftentimes they'll say, oh yeah, I do legacy planning, but their legacy planning is like, not really legacy planning, right? It's like, do you have a family story you'd like to pass on? And they think that that's legacy planning. Or name your top 5 values and write them down. That'll really help them. Or, and this actually is helpful to do an ethical will of writing out your values. That really is very helpful, but in and of itself isn't enough. And so from an entrepreneur's perspective, how do I know that I have the right person, right? And in my industry my goal is to see it become recognized. All I do is legacy planning. My expertise is the communication and trust, how to prepare heirs, how to build that mission statement, that family. I mean, the family story is important too, but the family mission, that's all I focus on. And I sit side by side with only the best of the best of, like you were saying, the wealth advisors that truly know the secrets of the super rich and really how to help their families implement those. I do see a lot of people in my industry that are attorneys that have bolted on a legacy plan to their offerings, or a financial advisor that says that they offer legacy planning, but really don't have the practical, tactical steps that I help families create. Like, we were talking about having your documents organized in the checklist. I help families create a personal emergency preparedness plan. I call it a PEP plan. And I don't ask my clients to do anything that I haven't done. So one of the things that I would say as an entrepreneur, ask your advisors, do they have a will? Do they have an estate plan? Do they have a plan to achieve the goals that you want to, because if they don't, they're probably not the right advisor.
All right. That's good insight, right? Just asking, right? Show me your plan, right? Show me what you're doing. And it should be more than, hey, I've circled my top 5 values. It should be, here's the implementation of it also.
That is. And, one of the things the entrepreneurs that I typically work with, and I think you're the same, Tim, is people that really want to make a difference in the world. Yeah. And they recognize that when they're successful in becoming it, and by the way, I'd like to give an unsolicited plug to your books. I absolutely have loved them. And I've learned so much, because I'm not a financial wealth advisor. So I'm actually going to be implementing the things that you put in your book to help me and my family. So I'd like to say thank you. But just to have the ability to earn wealth, to give it away that impacts your significance, right? And I think that everything that you're doing and I'm doing helps families do that easier, and really can make a huge difference in the world.
Yeah, no, very, very true. So, and actually in your book, right, Cracking the Inheritance Code, you lay out 3 simple steps that people can follow. You talk about living your legacy, you talk about preparing yourself, you talk about preparing your family. And maybe we can just spend a couple minutes on each one of those. What does it mean to live your legacy? What does that mean?
Well, one of the things that I realize is that so many people are focused on giving a legacy. But before you give a legacy, you need to live a legacy. And your legacy is more than the money that you leave behind, right? Your legacy is how you experience life, how you're going to be remembered, and the impact that you're going to make. And so one of the steps that we work with our clients is how to help people show up as their best self when life gets tough. So to actually live how you want to be remembered, start making that impact now, and enjoy life, and teach your family through they're looking at you, right? So to teach them by living it is one of the greatest gifts that you can give your family.
Okay. So, right. And it can be as simple as, right, instead of thinking, what, I'm going to leave that really big gift to, my favorite organization when I die, maybe it's starting to involve your family and giving smaller gifts while you are alive, so that they can see you live that legacy instead of waiting for it, right? Start it now.
Well, we actually take it a step further. My grandkids range in age from 10 to 2. And we, in our family meetings, ask them how they want to impact the world. Mm-hmm. And my grandson wanted for his birthday to host a dinner at our local Samaritan Inn, a homeless shelter. So he raised the money, and the family went and served dinner together. And then we had a discussion afterwards, because I think it was $300 to feed 80 people. So, as the matriarch, I love my role as Elmo. They couldn't say Oma, the German name. So I got to be Elmo, and I love being Elmo. And I just did the simple math with him. I said, so, how much does it cost to go to Chick-fil-A? That's their favorite restaurant, $10. So if you were to feed 80 people, how much would that cost? So now he's doing math, would cost $800. Well, we fed 80 people for $300, and teaching them how they can work with nonprofits and really evaluate the impact that they're making. And he was 8.
Wow. Wow. Right. Well, talk about living your legacy. That's powerful. The second thing you bring up is preparing yourself. How do you prepare yourself?
Well, one of the things that most people don't like to think about is growing older and to die. But we're all going to. I mean, the day we were born is the day we started dying, and not looking at something doesn't mean it's going to go away. So by preparing yourself, my philosophy is begin with the end in mind, and the end of mind is death. Most people are just trying to get through their day, and I'm thinking 100 years into the future. And so to prepare myself, I really do a lot of research in a lot of different areas. It's fascinating how research can take you to different really specific pieces of information. And I got into a research project of the activities of daily living. Instrumental activities of daily living and advanced activities of daily living are how scientists and doctors start looking at the aging process. And in doing so, I discovered that really, unless you're taken out by an accident or a disease, you would follow this natural cycle of aging that eventually you would be like a toddler and need help dressing and feeding yourself and going to the bathroom. But using the research-based science behind that, I discovered the stages before that and how you can prepare yourself to, I create a care plan for aging with my clients so that they can age with dignity and stay independent longer by being prepared for the natural process of aging.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Right. So needed. And then lastly, right. And we've already talked about some of these, but there's preparing your family. And what are some, and you can tell us the same ones, but how do you prepare your family for this?
Well, I'm going to tell you a funny story real quick. My granddaughter was 5 in kindergarten, and they had an assignment that said, "Where will you be in 100 years?" And she drew a picture of a cemetery with people coming to visit her. Isn't that hysterical?
That's cute.
But to prepare your kids is really to give them a safety net while you're alive and start giving them the opportunity to learn how to make decisions and how to fulfill the roles that they're going to be fulfilled, and do it while you're alive. So my daughter, who will be the executive of our estate, for 8 years, she's been in a training program. We also run a commercial real estate investment company. She's the 3rd generation to do so. And so I've had her in an 8-year training program on how to take care of that business for us. And she does presentations to her siblings so that she's being prepared and she's actually doing the work. And it's very rewarding because you get the pleasure of watching your kids grow and learn while you're there to help guide them. And look, everybody's going to make mistakes, right? And it really is about giving them the freedom to be able to make a mistake and know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, so true. And you know what I think here, what I'm hearing, Cindy, time and time again, as I kind of dive into this and we get, deep on some of these questions is, there's not one set of solutions that work. I mean, there's a pattern you follow, there's a process you follow, but the outcomes are going to be drastically different because every family is so different. And so it's hard to say, how do I exactly live out my legacy? Well, you got to ask that follow-up question. Tell me about your family. What does your legacy look like, right? What do you envision? And so, there may be that process, but it sounds like the outcomes are going to be really different just because every family is so different.
Really, Tim, it's about asking the right questions. Every family that I work with is different. And so what I love is that I've got the roadmap, but it's totally customizable to meet the family's needs.
Yeah. Yeah, right there. There's no one size fits all here, is there?
Mm-mm. So, and I have to share, I've been kind of hiding a fact that's even more shocking, and I hope it's not too late to share this, but we talked about 70% of families losing their wealth the first transfer. The piece that really is why I do what I do is 91% of families have lost their wealth by the grandkids. And so for me, my grandchildren were born after my mom and dad passed away. And when I discovered that, I realized that if I didn't do something different, that my grandkids would never benefit from what my parents did. And so it's that 4th generation. That's what I call generational wealth. Because if I can teach a family how to build generational wealth, which is wealth that makes it to the great grandkids, and I can give them a system and a structure that each generation is working towards that 4th generation, the family shouldn't run out of money. I mean, they should be able to grow, create, maintain, and protect their wealth when they're looking 100 years into the future.
Wow, such powerful thoughts and ideas, Cindy. And you yourself are also an entrepreneur, right? You've got the commercial real estate that you're doing, right? And you're running businesses. And I love to always kind of dive into that mindset piece with some of our guests too. And do you believe there's a pattern or a formula to really running successful enterprises and being a successful entrepreneur?
Well, for myself, I think it's the why that really, for me, makes me a successful entrepreneur, to know that my why is bigger than just our family. We recently joined the conscious capitalism movement and created a purpose for all of our businesses so that being an entrepreneur is making the world a better place.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Right. And that's what you want to do. You want to change things. So, do you think your why also ties into just how you're able to maintain a positive, productive, successful mindset? I mean, what are you doing on a regular basis to really, stay positive, to stay out there and to maintain that mindset of keeping to drive forward and changing the world?
Well, and for me, I tie it back into living my legacy, because we are body, mind, and spirit. We're human beings. And to be able to do self-care and to really, every day is a gift. In fact, on my mom and dad's headstone, it says each day is a gift. And I had written that in one of the cards that I'd given my dad, and he was planning his own funeral at the time. So what I put in a card ended up on his headstone that he picked. And so, just to be able to know that each day is a gift. So you're living the micro day of enjoying the moment. Because if you're not enjoying your now, what's the point, right? The focus can't always be 100 years, right? Because it's in the now. But when your vision is 100 years and you're enjoying the now, so it's about taking care of your body, your mind, and your spirit. And I have a morning and evening routine that I do that I am working on to maintain my health and my connection and stay sharp in my brain.
Wow, fantastic. So we have talked about so many wonderful things here, and I love the mission you're on. I love the legacy planning because it's so needed. It's something I talk about. You're a great resource to have, and your books are fantastic. And you lay out such a simple way to do these and very practical things. So if someone's listening, how can they get in touch with you, Cindy?
Well, the easiest way is to go to legacyriskaudit.com. That's where they can get access to their free legacy risk audit. And in 5 minutes, they'll download it, give me your email, download it. You'll know what conditions your family is at risk for. That's the easiest way.
Okay, so start with that risk audit, and then if they want to reach out to, how do you work with your clients? Do you do that risk assessment with them? Do you sit down and do this? Do you do it through conferences? How do you engage with people and help them actually put these plans in place?
Well, I've got various ways, and because this is really my passion project, I know what I've been through. I offer the risk audit for free, and I will do a 15-minute, free conversation with anybody just to go over the results. I've offered my information in a $20 book. So if you want to do it yourself, you can go to Amazon, download a book, read it. I also started the North Texas Family Enterprise Center last year to offer affordable access to legacy planning tools. And then I have a private practice as well if a client wants to work one-on-one with me.
Gotcha. So there's multiple ways we can engage with you, and you can help us build our legacy plan then.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Excellent. So any closing thoughts for us before we sign off here, Cindy?
Well, I get asked a lot, how much money do I have to have? And I feel like the question is, what impact do you want to make on your family? And it kind of goes back to what is the significance of your life? And how much do you want to enjoy life? And let's just face it, the people that listen to you and the people that you work with want more out of life. And those are the kind of people that I typically work with, and that legacy planning is for, because they really want to make a difference in the world.
Well said. Well, hey, thank you for sharing so generously with us. Thank you for giving us a way forward. And thank you for helping us understand legacy planning and some of the simple things that we can do. That risk audit, I'm going to go take it myself, right? Well worth taking. And, as listeners, I'm going to encourage you, don't just listen. We want you to get out there and take action. That's what Dental Wealth Nation is all about. It's helping you continue to grow so that you can have that amazing life of significance. But significance, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you take action. So I want to encourage you to listen to this, implement these lessons, go take that risk audit. And if you do that, you're going to make it a fantastic day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time on Dental Wealth Nation.
You've been listening to Dental Wealth Nation. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Join us next time as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families, and help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love. Till next time, make sure to hit the website at dentalwealthnation.com.